UnCanadian by B. Constant, Haunted Part 1. No one seemed to care about my so-called big face reveal. Each time the nurse entered, I braced myself, waiting for anyone to notice, to react the way I feared. But they didn't. The other patients were lost in their own worlds, too absorbed to even glance my way. We shared this cramped hospital room, yet I wasn't a curiosity, not even worth a passing look. I started watching them as if they were mirrors, stealing glances to gauge their reactions. Did they notice what I'd become, or was it just me? Trapped in the nightmare of being disfigured, a freak everyone was too polite to acknowledge. Maybe it's the Canadian way. Ignore the ugly truths, offer a smile, and pretend everything's fine. The woman across from me stayed buried in her crossword puzzle, head bowed like nothing else existed. The elderly woman beside her snored, caught in restless sleep. Behind the blue curtain, the fourth patient was just a shadow, reaching now and then for the call button in the dark. Strangely, it gave me confidence. Their indifference soothed me as if their detachment erased my fear. None of them flinched when the nurse approached my bed. I wasn't a curiosity, I wasn't a spectacle, I wasn't anything at all. I couldn't ask for a mirror, I wanted to, I could. But the words stuck in my throat, swallowed by something heavier than I could name. Asking would expose too much. I couldn't let them see my fears, my confusion. I was holding together. I couldn't let them see how badly I needed to be seen, how desperate I was for validation, for recognition. But I already knew the reason. I'd been told. They said seeing my face might be too traumatic. They were right, of course. Bruising, swelling, a face so different from the one I used to recognize. A mirror wouldn't give me the truth, only more damage. But that didn't make the idea of not seeing it any easier. I stared up at the nurse as she worked, my eyes locked on her face, searching for any sign of something, anything beneath her mask of professionalism. I knew the routine by now, knew the precise moment when I could steal a glance, catch a fleeting expression. Was there disgust hiding behind that calm demeanor? Pity maybe lingering in the corners of her eyes? I told myself it didn't matter, but it did. I was desperate for some acknowledgement, for the smallest crack in her composed exterior. I needed to see something, anything, that wasn't just the cool detachment of someone who'd seen it all before. But no, nothing. She didn't flinch, didn't blink. She was just doing her job. It wasn't enough. The nurse's voice drones on, the same every day. "We're just going to change the dressing, Casey." I sit still, pulse quickening, eyes fixed on her hands. I know the routine. The peeling away of old bandages, the toss into the trash, the reach for fresh gauze. She moves with practiced ease, talking without pause. Her words settle my nerves, and I can't bring myself to tell her to stop. She talks about her morning. I've heard it all before. But it calms the buzzing in my head. There's something about her life, so simple and uninterrupted, that makes me almost jealous. "Traffic was light today," she says, adjusting the bandages with the same gentle touch. "Kids are getting better at being ready for the bus." "Nothing exciting," she continues. "I get up at 5:30, Paul drops me off. I like not having to drive, it's nice, really. I sip my coffee and watch the city wake up. Best part of the day." She pauses, glancing at the clock. It's eerie, though. The roads are empty, like a zombie apocalypse, but I like it, just me and the road. And the sunrise, always beautiful, like the world gets a fresh start. She smiles, oblivious. For a moment I almost envy her. Her life so simple, so unbroken. Then each day I remind myself that I need to focus, mentally detach myself from her story. I know that her removing the gauze is complete. The bandages have been removed. Air hits my face. She's about to turn and throw the bandages out. This is my tiny window. For a few seconds a day my face is exposed. The bandage is off. The nurse turns to throw out the old gauze, and that's when I pounce, unable to stop myself. I watch her closely, searching her face for any hint of what she sees. But it's not the bandages that hold my attention now, it's my face. Something deeper has taken root, a desperate need to know, to feel. My gaze lingers on the nurse, studying her eyes for any crack in her mask. Was I really as broken as I feared, or was there still something of the person I once was? That's my moment. My hands dart to my face before she can stop me, feeling the unfamiliar contours, trying to map out what's left of me. The skin beneath my fingers feels heavy, unwieldy, like it belongs to someone else. Every bump, every dip, every rough patch is a new discovery, as though I'm learning to recognize my own face. I knew I was touching skin, tracing my swollen, exaggerated lips, but it didn't feel like mine. The connection was severed, like the signal had been lost. Where were the bursts of pain, I kept asking myself. Were they as bad as yesterday, or was it finally getting better? I couldn't tell. Did I have stitches? Would there be a scar? I couldn't find out. Nothing reflective was ever within reach. A sharp slap echoed through the room, swift and precise, like she'd practiced it 100 times on disobedient patients. The sting lingered on my hand, not hard enough to bruise, but sharp enough to make its point. "No!" the nurse snapped, her voice cutting through my shock as I recoiled. "Unless your hands are 100% squeaky clean, you're risking infection with your filthy hands." Her words stung almost as much as the slap. Filthy. That's how she saw me, reckless, unclean, a danger even to myself. Filthy hands, that's what she called them. My hands, the only tools I had left, now reduced to another reminder of everything I couldn't control. I'd mumble something that barely sounded like compliance, but it didn't matter. She was already gone, moving past me like I wasn't even there. The nurse's gentle voice faded into the background as I struggled to stay in the present, but no matter how hard I tried, my mind drifted back to James, to his music. But as I sat there, lost in the haze of pain and uncertainty, a sound began, a faint rhythm, almost imperceptible yet insistent, inescapable. The sterile hum of the hospital machines mimicked a rhythm I knew too well, reminding me I F him. The sharp, precise notes played in my head, derailing my thoughts. Even in his absence, his music was always there, demanding attention. The sharp, deliberate notes of James's piano surfaced in my mind, unbidden. It wasn't really there, but the memory was so vivid it might as well have been. Each imagined keystroke carried the weight of him, his precision, his control, his unrelenting presence. Did he even notice when I left, or had his fingers continued their dance across the keys, oblivious as if nothing had changed? Where was James? How long had it been? The longer the silence stretched, the worse the thoughts festered, gnawing like an open wound. What had I done this time? What line had I crossed to make him so angry? Or maybe it wasn't anger, maybe he just didn't care. Was I that insignificant, so unimportant he hadn't even noticed I was gone? Or worse, did he notice and choose not to care? I couldn't remember. My mind was a haze, blank where the answers should have been. How had I ended up here in this sterile bed surrounded by strangers? No one would tell me. Not really. Their words felt hollow, like flimsy walls hiding something they didn't want me to see. And the silence. It was unbearable, suffocating. It was as though they all knew something horrible about me, something too awful to say aloud, something I didn't even know about myself. One day, a kind nurse handed me a pen and a scratch pad. For a moment, I thought this was it, my chance to make sense of everything, and so I wrote it. One word, a lifeline, as if spelling it out could bring him back, could make sense of the chaos in my mind. When my head wasn't foggy, I'd try to write, but it was so hard, frustrating. Moving the pen across the page felt like dragging a boulder through sand. My hand shook, my fingers stiff and clumsy. I never realized how much I'd taken for granted, how easy it used to be to write a word, spell it right, form a sentence. It took time. Slowly, carefully, I wrote one word, just one. James? The letters were neat, almost too neat, like a child's first attempt at cursive. I held the paper up to anyone who'd look, nurses, caseworkers, whoever passed by. Their faces blurred together in my haze, indistinct except for one thing, their eyes. I saw how their eyes changed when they read it, eyebrows knitted together, their lids heavy with something I couldn't name, pity, judgment, or something else entirely. Their mouths would purse like they were holding back words I wasn't allowed to hear. I didn't stop. I held the paper higher, more insistent, desperate, then the paper would disappear, quietly, as if it hadn't mattered at all, but it mattered to me. I'd start over, slow strokes with shaky hands, carving that one word into existence again. James. One day a nurse finally responded. She patted my hand, her voice soft, soothing, like I was some cornered animal she needed to calm. "You're safe now," she said. "He's not coming. You don't have to worry about him." Then she left. I looked down and the notepad was gone, even the pen. Her words lingered in the air, but they didn't reach me. Safe? I didn't need safety. I needed James. As her voice echoes in the cold, sterile room, a strange thought flickers through my mind, one that doesn't quite belong. Among the panic and confusion, I wonder, with a twist of dark irony, if anyone would care to know my story. Would they understand? Or would they turn away, repulsed by the mess of my broken mind, the remnants of my choices? There's still more I have to say, something that can't be left unsaid. If you've stayed with me this long, if my story has reached you, share and subscribe, because trust me, You won't want to miss what comes next.